Welcome back to Visionary Ventures, the Boustany podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Maria Amiouni, a spiritual coach, human design reader, and published poet whose journey is as inspiring as it is enlightening. Over the past decade, Maria has devoted herself to exploring the depth of spirituality, leading her to a profound understanding of her own identity and purpose. Leaving behind a successful career in the corporate world, specifically a hedge fund, Maria
Mhm.
now focuses on helping others break free from their conditioning to rediscover their empowerment and connection to their true selves. Join us as we delve into Maria's transformative journey and learn how we can apply her insights to our own path towards self discovery and spiritual fulfillment. So, first of all, Maria, thanks a lot for being here. I really appreciate having you on the third episode of the Boustany podcast, Visionary Ventures. So, Maria, you're a dear friend of mine. I've known you and I've watched your journey from afar. We were connected on Instagram at first, and then uh, uh, I took even some of your consultancy or coaching, and even some other spiritual exercises that we did together. And lastly, your book, which is amazing, by the way. I'm halfway there. Didn't finish it yet, but really touched me. So, again, thanks a lot, Maria, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on and for giving me the space to share my story and to be here with you today. It's interesting as you were talking about our meeting all of these years ago. I was really taken back to the past, like when we first met, like on Instagram and where I was at. I was living in London. And yes, our journeys both have evolved so much since. So it's really nice that I get to be here with you. Thank you.
Indeed, a lot have changed, and I'm really interested to dig deeper in Maria's journey and tell or inspire anyone that is watching or listening us about the shift that you've done and what it really takes, in fact. So let's start a bit with some initial mental challenges that you faced when transitioning from the corporate world to a spiritually focused lifestyle.
I would
Can you
say,
tell us a bit about that?
yes, of course. I would say that the mindset was already being altered before I left my corporate job, right? There was already changes happening. I was already very much on my spiritual path while I was working. So for me, it was, yes, very much a continuation. And when I quit my corporate job, for me, it was really putting my faith into action, right? Because a lot of times there are a lot of things that we can understand conceptually, a lot of things that make sense to us. And you can tell yourself, yes, it's great to get uncomfortable. It's great for you to get outside of your comfort zone, overcome all of these things, and then when it comes to it, you don't actually go through with it. So when I did take the leap of faith, I had already started doing a lot of the internal work and the rewiring of my belief systems. It doesn't mean that when I left I didn't have more to do. Of course, there were new challenges that made an appearance. I would say a lot of it had to do with like self-worth, right? Like, are you worthy enough to live the life that you want to live, to create the life you want to create? And so that's been a journey of its own. And then there was also, the challenges of not having anyone else next to me or around me that went through that journey as well, right? Like in comparison to like my friends or what other people were doing. It's not to say to compare, but just to have someone guide you. I didn't feel like I had that. So it felt like a lot of the things I did have to figure out on my own, because no two experience is going to be the same, right? Like your experience changing from one world to another is going to be very different to mine. It's going to be very different to the listeners. So we're all going to have to figure things out as well for ourselves. And I would say sometimes it's even better, because if you lean too much on what others are doing, you can then fall into the trap of trying to like imitate them, imitate their journey. Whereas I believe everyone has their own unique journeys to walk, their own roads to pave. And it's important for each one to listen to themselves versus to the outside noise. And that was something definitely I had to work on a lot, because you seek for validation, right? You seek for people to validate what you're doing, to praise you for what you're doing, to encourage you, to support
It's a
you.
trap.
It's a trap for sure. You don't always get that. You don't always get that.
Yeah, and talking about these mental barriers and skepticism, let's say, how did you really overcome these stuff that might, I don't know, you were embracing a new spiritual path, and you were coming from a highly analytical hedge fund background, corporate life. How did you navigate and shut them?
I would say more so than shutting them, it would be to utilize them as an understanding as to who you are, right? And why you think you're this way. I would say more so than shutting anything down, because when you shut something down, you pretend it doesn't exist, and then it'll pop up somewhere else in your life, right? It'll show its face in another aspect of your life. So it's about working with it and not against it. I would say one of the things that really helped me were my practices, like my meditation practices, right? Like scanning daily what is coming through my mind, filtering what is coming through my mind, asking myself, do I want this thought? Do I believe in this thought? Is this even something that I believe in? Or I've been conditioned to believing this because of what society says or what I grew up hearing from other people? Because you hear a lot, right? Like, oh, this is life. And then you're like, but is it life, or is this the life that you're telling me about? But it's very
Yeah,
different to my internal experience. So it's interesting. I would say it's not very like black and white. I would say I didn't repress these thoughts and these belief systems. I allowed them to come up to the surface, and then obviously having to work through them. And yeah, being okay with the darkness and the discomfort and the unknown is very important, because I don't think back then I could have imagined where I would be today. And that makes me excited, because it's like, I don't know where I'm going to be 5 years from now. I don't know what's going to happen. To have that humility, by the way, to say things like, I don't know. One, it is the truth, right? Because nobody really
yeah.
knows. And
No one
also,
knows.
no one knows.
And we think that we really know everything, and yeah, we're capable, and yeah, I figured out my life, and they go on, and yeah, no one knows anything. That's another spoiler alert, guys.
It's another sport. Yeah, no one knows anything. That's for sure. And this isn't to say that there isn't wisdom that comes through as you walk this journey and you walk this path, for sure. But to remain open to pivoting when you're trying to walk down a certain path and it's not working out, and you're trying to really, really make it work. Like for me, for example, I really tried to stay in London as much as I possibly could. And then I just had to make peace with the realization that London was no longer a place for me to stay and live in, that I had to make a move. And it took a few years to actually make the move, right? And I would say a lot of times for people, that's the case. They sit on something for some time, and it takes certain things, certain experiences to come your way in order for that move to happen. So while you're in the middle of a change and you feel that the change is coming, instead of one, fighting it and pretending that it's not going to happen, or two, trying to make it happen sooner than it's supposed to, really surrendering to it and letting the experiences come step by step and piece by piece.
Amazing. And that really resonates with me also because I also moved three different countries in 3 4 years. So yeah, I know what it takes to do the step and do the move, and it's even harder when you're doing it from a career path point of view. So yeah, I know what it takes, and well done, Maria. uh, so just to form a timeline, where were you living the entire time? Were you brought up in London and you stayed there? Can you tell us just a small timeline
Of my journey, yes,
of
I
your
would say.
journey?
So I grew up in Kuwait for 18 years. That was my home for 18
Okay.
years. And then I moved to San Diego for university. That was the first time I moved, and that was a really big change for me. But I grew in the best of ways. It was really one of the things in my life that I'm glad that I did, was moving so far away from where I was brought up and to be thrown into the deep end, because it really helped me develop my personality and to have a very fresh start, because sometimes people assume you're some way because they saw you growing up that way. So for me, it was like just this really clean slate of starting again in San Diego, graduated from there, and then moved to London, and then was in London for 8 years total. Almost 4 of the years I was working in corporate, and then was burned out for a year. So it took some time for me to recover from my burnout. And then that's when I started to coach and go down this path even more. And then about a year and a half ago, I moved to Dubai. So that's been the journey so far.
Lovely transition from three different continents, we can say. Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
then
cool.
coming back home closer to where I grew up, really for me,
Exactly.
feels like
You
coming
you're
full
you're
circle.
close to Kuwait.
Yeah, I am.
You did visit not so
I
long ago.
do. I
Yeah.
visit from time to
Okay.
time for work, for friends, for family. So
Cool.
yeah, it's nice.
So talking about your coaching, what common mental conditioning do you help people break free from, and what methods have proven effective in this endeavor?
It's so interesting, by the way, because I feel like with every client, it's going to be so different. And sometimes they surprise me with what chains they're conditioned to, right? To be fair, you have some people, because of their upbringing, there's a lot of suffering and victim consciousness, right? Like, I'm a victim of what happened to me, I'm a victim of what I've been through. And so that consciousness, by the way, it's interesting because when you're in it seems like the whole world is against you all the time and no one is in support of you. So anything that you want to do and undertake, you're going to be meeting resistance. People are not going to support you. People are not going to believe in you, because that's the consciousness that you're emitting and that you're embodying. So I would say like that is, one of them. I would say with every single one, though, I really try to remind them of the power that comes forth when you are connected to a higher power and when you're connected to yourself and your intuition. I would say, you mentioned, my corporate world, my corporate job was very much logical, mental. It's all about, the masculine energy, but I would also push it to say when it's unhealthy, when it's out of balance, right? And that's why a lot of people, they struggle while they're working corporate, because it's not natural to be working in that way. It goes against our physiology, our health, everything, right? It's just the way that it's set up really takes you away from living a life that is in connection with the whole. So I would say that that's something that I bring forth with clients. It's to remind them, like, you're not doing this alone. You're not creating your journey on your own. that it's a co-creation that's taking place, and you can work with so many different elements. You can work with the elements of nature, you can work with a higher power, you can work with your intuition. More of your feminine energy can be included in this. So there's these things that come forth, and each session is very highly intuitive. So I never really know what to expect from a session
So you go
sometimes.
with the flow depending on every case by case, every need. It has its own technique, and
100%.
there's no
Sometimes I
one
scratch
single.
myself. Yeah.
There's no one size fits all in
Yeah, no, there isn't. And it's very
healing.
surprising.
Yeah,
No, there isn't one type of healing. And everybody's on their own journey, right? So some people might still very much be uh figuring out, okay, their physical health. So we focus on that. Some people are looking to reparent themselves, right? To become the parent that they didn't have while growing up. And that one is huge, because finally you step into that version of you that takes full responsibility for your own life without blaming another being, not blaming your parents, not blaming this and that for being where you're at. And that's where I feel like real change happens, because you realize that you are the main character of your life. Like, the others in your life, if you're making them the main characters, you're in a lot of
yeah.
trouble. Yeah.
You're the hero of your own story. Yeah.
Yes.
Some people don't really understand that, or don't really give it its true meaning, and they don't live for it. So they live in the
Yeah, because
shadows,
for
and
them,
I
because the
feel
way
that
that we
you have to put, or like, shed the light on what they're missing. And yeah, that's a lot of inner work, I believe, that I'm gonna ask you a bit more about the spiritual insights on that.
Mhm.
So you've been on this spiritual path for over a decade now. Can you
Yes.
tell us about a pivotal moment or experience that significantly deepened your spiritual practice?
It's such an interesting question. I don't know. I got kind of emotional when you asked me that, because I will say that there wasn't one great moment. It's been, each one is great in its own way. Like, I feel like if I were to say that's the moment, then I'm like taking away from all of the other moments that were just as beautiful and significant. And yeah, there wasn't one moment. Of course, I would say when I started the yoga practice, I was literally a month away from graduating university. And my PT at the gym became a yoga teacher, and she kept trying to convince me for months, like, come do yoga, come do yoga, come do yoga. And I was like, I want to do yoga. Like, I'm not flexible, you know, all of the belief systems that you have around yoga. And
Yeah,
then I went, and it was a combination of it being someone I already knew and I loved and appreciated, as well as my change and awareness. So that was the year where I started to become aware of things, especially the voice in my head, right? Because before then, I never realized that there was a voice in my head. I never realized that there was like this other
that was the
world happening.
common.
Yes, I didn't know that there was a narrator narrating my life until I was like 21, turning 22. And then so mix that with yoga, it was just like this beautiful blend. And I remember my first yoga class, I fell in love with it. I was like, okay, this is something I need to keep doing. There's something there. And there's something that's helping me ease the thoughts in my mind that brings me a bit more peace within myself. And then that summer, I just continuously practice. And she taught me how to meditate. And meditation came easier to me than yoga. Interestingly, I know meditation doesn't come easy to a lot of people.
Yeah,
But meditation was just like, whoa, what is this? I want to do this more. And books started to make appearances in my life that summer. So by the time I entered the work field, I already had like things happening.
Hmm.
And this is where I just took in
You were
all of this.
transitioning and you were shifting already,
Yes,
and yeah, it was easier. So we can say that yoga was your first, let's call it the first taste
awake.
to
Yes,
mindfulness or awakening.
for sure. For sure, for sure. Yoga was definitely that practice that it was a light bulb moment. And then after that, the light bulb moments just kept happening in so many different ways, whether it was through yoga. For a very long time, it was definitely through yoga. Then it was a lot through meditation too. And then there were other modalities that I started to explore, like rebirthing, that shifted me a lot. And self-reflection, right? I would say, actually, by the way, something really simple yet really hard for many people to do is being present. Being present just shifts your level of awareness immediately, right? When the second that you're present with yourself, with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your emotions, like that in itself is always going to be the catalyst for transformation and for alchemy to take place. It's never going to happen outside of the present moment. So if you're listening to this, like, just, snap your fingers and come back into life and be like, okay, I need to, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I sensing? What am I sitting on? How does it feel beneath me? All of these little things, by the way, that already is like huge.
We're always talking now. I'm listening to what you're saying, and it 100% resonates with me. And I've been trying all sort of mindfulness techniques, from meditation to yoga, working on my awareness and my mindfulness. It has been a long journey, and of course, I'm far from being a certain level, but still, just practicing, noticing your thoughts, and whenever we get carried away by our own internal thoughts, this is where you start your first steps into, okay, no, I'm not drifting away. Let me stay here. I'm here now. I don't care about the past, or I'm not gonna worry about the future. So yeah, these snapping the finger and just say to yourself, are you awake? Are you here? It makes
Yeah.
you like live in the moment. So yeah, thank you for the reminder.
Yes, we all need that reminder constantly, right?
Yeah.
Because we're a society that's really grown to be addicted to the mind stuff, right? There's an addiction for sure to our thoughts, to creating stories out of them, and
Yeah,
from
we overanalyze and we overcomplicate everything, and it's really our thoughts that are driving us,
yeah.
literally. So how does understanding, Maria, the human design, how
Mhm.
does it really contribute to one's spiritual journey? And what was your personal experience with this tool?
I love that question so much, and it's because I love human design so much. And it's interesting because when I came across human design, I remember it was after I quit my job, and there wasn't a lot of information back then. So a lot of it was my own investigative nature, Googling stuff, researching what it means, and not fully comprehending everything. And the first time I had my reading, and I will never forget it because I ended up like crying in the session, because for the first time I felt so seen and understood, and he gave me language into how I was and why I was that way. And then I started to understand it more and more, and it gave me that permission slip for myself. Because again, I mentioned a bit earlier on, right? Like sometimes you wait for someone to validate your experience, and you wait for them to validate your experience. So then you're like, okay, like that means I'm on the right path. Versus here, it's like, you might not validate my experience because the way that I am designed is so unique to me. that it's different to you, and I'm moving in a way now and it doesn't look like the way that you're moving, but it's true to me, so it must be right. I give myself that, like, okay, that check, like, it's fine for me to have felt this way my whole life, and it's okay for me to then act in this way, where in the past I might have been like, oh wait, maybe I'm being selfish, oh wait, maybe I'm not like as energetic as other people, and I'm not doing as much as other people, and then beat myself up for it. Now I'm like, okay, just like understand that this is your nature, this is how you came to experience life. And I really believe that because we are made whole and we are made complete, that there's nothing missing from the way that I'm designed in order to come and experience what my soul really came here to experience and came here to be. And
I
the
love
more that
that.
I can really embrace that, exactly, it's for me, it's like, okay, what are the ingredients that are within me? How do I mix that all up together? How do I really actually come to understand what is not me as well? Because once I can understand that, whoa, like the freedom that comes from just interacting with people, and instead of feeling like, oh my God, I'm an empath, or I'm highly sensitive, or I'm picking up on this and this and this, like, to realize, wait, like, it's such a gift and such a blessing that I can pick up on these things from others. And then instead of absorbing it, to just experience it and then release it. And then that just allows you to, for me at least, to create a life that is unique to me, and I love it. And that's how I choose to share human design, at least with people. It's
So
very,
now
for me, it's empowering.
you're providing human design readings and coaching, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, amazing. And uh, you, we've done a small short reading and a discovery call together, and yeah, I really enjoyed and I loved the insights that you shared about my human design chart, and
Mhm.
it was really nice. I personally also got into something once called Gene Keys, and I did a reading with a teacher, which is kind of similar as well, and also intriguing about every uniqueness of every human being. Because what I can understand from all of that is we are unique being that were born at a specific date, time, and location, and that really makes us who we truly are. And
Mhm.
we go on with our lives, and we start putting on layers of, I don't know, peer pressure, changing for the sake of uh, our own entourage or community or family, traumas, triggers. So we start putting on all of these and we get disconnected from who we truly are.
Mhm.
Is it something really happening, or do you have another interpretation to what really
Hmm.
happens?
It's interesting, by the way, because I, as much as I believe that we can sometimes lose sight and clarity as to who we are, yes. However, what I have come to feel into my own experience is that you're never going to be fully disconnected. There's always going to remain some sort of connection, right? There's always a bit of that connection with the self, regardless of how far away you move away from it, or like how far away you get lost in a bunch of things, like your stories, your pain, your suffering, the collective pain, the collective suffering. Like, of course you can, like, something traumatic happens to you, yes, you can like leave pieces of yourself behind. However, to say that someone is completely disconnected from the self, I would say, like, I believe in that less and less. I used to believe it, right? Especially when I felt like I wandered so far away from home that when I came back home, I was like, whoa, I must have been disconnected. But the fact that I was able to come back shows me that there was always still a
The
connection. Even if it's
connection.
the 1%, you can still make it back to you. That's what I believe. But again, everybody's going to have their own interpretation based on their own experiences. But I don't believe that we're ever fully unplugged from the source.
Yeah, not fully unplugged. Yeah, if you're fully unplugged, maybe the soul is dead. You die.
I mean, and we know that that doesn't really happen. The body, yes, the
Hmm.
body, yes, disintegrates and leaves, but the soul, I believe, moves on.
Talking about spirituality, I know also that you're a Reiki master
No,
and
I'm
you
not the
do
master. I've done two. I've done Reiki 1 and Reiki 2,
you,
but I haven't
you're
done
a,
the master yet. Yeah.
you're a Reiki practitioner.
Yes.
Like 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 me, by the way. I've done level 1 and
Yeah.
2. Yeah.
I remember you told me.
So tell us a bit about Reiki. What is it really, and why are you offering Reiki?
Yes. So for me, Reiki was not one of, it was the first certification I did. Before I did my yoga certification, I did my Reiki certifications. And it was really interesting how it even came into my life. Because the thing is, when I was younger, when I was a kid, I used to believe that my hands had the ability to heal, to just make things better, to make things whole, let's say. And it was this thing that I used to do when I was a kid. Like I used to put my hand on like certain body parts when I was sick, just to like kind of, move the energy around. But obviously I didn't know what I was doing. It was just a very natural thing that I did, even with my parents or family members when they were not well. Like I'd go to them and I just like placed my hands on them. So when I heard about Reiki through a friend and she explained what it was, I was like, okay, like I need to go, I need to do this. And I remember being very mind blown. I remember being like, whoa, like this is crazy, this is wild. It gave me an understanding of energy a lot more, and like what energy is and how to feel into that. And obviously with the last 10 years, it's changed a lot, and my sessions have changed a lot. What I will say is that, of course, everybody is responsible for their own healing. And as a practitioner, I'm facilitating the space for healing to take place, but I'm not the one doing the healing. I'm just being that channel, that vehicle for it to come through. And I do like to offer it for many different reasons. One, because it soothes the nervous system of the person that is coming into the space. And I would say most dis-ease comes from a dysregulated nervous system. So it helps regulate that, which is amazing. It also puts them in a state of meditation. So if someone isn't a practitioner, doesn't meditate, it gives them a bit of that taste of what meditation can be like or feel like. And I do believe that for a lot of people, it allows them to see more clearly and to feel more certain about what they want to do next. It removes all of that kind of noise and junk and accumulation, and just like provides that like tunnel vision of, okay, like, this needs to happen, this needs to take place. And then their lives start to change because now they had an internal experience, and things, without you then having to see them again, starts to shift around and change. And for some people, it might feel like the world is collapsing on them. I won't lie. I feel like sometimes it can feel like, oh, wait, I'm going, and it's confusing.
It really depends, right, on each person and where they are at, what are they going through, and their own healing process or journey.
For sure. For sure. I have different experiences with different people. I will say I have a family member. He just turned 18. he's like one of my favorite clients, because like every time we do a session, he's someone that goes on like such beautiful journeys and such beautiful trips, and I'm like, you're good. Like you don't need to you don't need anything in your life. Just keep that. The thing is, really what it is, it's that childlike innocence that is open to love and has that loving heart. I feel like for me that's what Reiki is about, to remind you of the love that exists within you. So yeah.
That's a lovely description, by the way. I love it. Thank
Yeah,
you for it.
thank
So,
you.
Maria, in your experience, how does one's physical health and practices impact their spiritual and mental well-being? How much do you emphasis on physical health? I know you're a yoga teacher as well, so
God, definitely a lot. The thing is, the path for everyone is going to be so different, right? Like some people are going to start with the physical. A lot of people that come to the path of yoga, they come for the physical aspects and for the physical benefits more than the mental and the spiritual. Those things can come along later if they choose to go down that path and explore it more, if they choose to remain open-minded to the mysticism and the magic behind the yoga practice, because not everybody's going to
yeah,
go there. So I would say I do believe that every single component of a person's life can contribute to more and more spiritual awareness. And I'll give an example, right? Like when we eat and we're very, very hungry, I know I do this. I might not even pay attention to how I'm eating, how
I do
slowly
it
I'm
too.
chewing my food. I'm just like swallowing my food. That's an area where a lot of people lose consciousness and awareness when they're at the table and they're eating food, right? And
Yeah,
so the way
especially
that like
if the food is good.
if the food is good too, right? Yeah, if the food is bad, I feel like they're gonna be extra aware that it's not good, and like,
Exactly.
they'll like have these reactions. But like if it's, good, or they're starving, right? You didn't eat all day, and now suddenly you're eating your meal, like you're just gonna swallow and gobble down the food without the awareness of eating. And I feel like actually eating is one of those places where people really just lose consciousness, right? It's just like out of it. And I think I have like my different reasonings behind it, but I would say that when I am, let's say, coaching someone around food, it's not even so much sometimes about what they're eating, but how they're eating it, where they're eating it. Are
Mhm.
they eating it under stress? Are they eating it in relaxing conditions? Are they eating fast? Are they eating slowly? Interestingly, by the way, human design does talk about food and how everyone operates differently. Like some people, for them, eating
Yeah, he
during the
told me
day,
I should not eat at night. I should eat during the day only.
for me, it's the opposite, by the way. It's I should eat at night and not during the day. And I find that when I do that, I do feel better. I do feel lighter. My sleep is a lot better. So I do see the benefits of it. Now I haven't gone like so deeply into it myself. But again, there's some people really they just need that like quiet, not having any external stimulation, like watching TV or listening to music and things like that. Whereas other people, like they can eat on the go, right? They can eat and talk and walk and be in noisy places, like it's fine. So I would say that, yeah, like again, these two things can seem completely unrelated, like, but at the same time, everything in your life is a spiritual practice. Everything that you're doing is a spiritual practice. It's just whether or not you're aware of that and not to separate things. I think we're really good at separating things. Like, okay, I'm working out, but I'm working out without any awareness, right? And that's why yoga is so powerful, because it's literally working out with awareness, moving your body with awareness, and linking breath and movement. So that would be my answer, if that answers your question in some ways.
It's really insightful, and which leads me to n- my next question, I would like to know what is your daily routine for
Mhm.
physical movement and trainings, etc.
Yes. So I was very into yoga for many years. It was my daily practice every day on the mat, no exceptions. Then I quit my job. Then it went down to like 5, 6 times a week. Then it went down and down and down. And then I found myself like not practicing because I had injuries, because I had like things that happened in my journey where I wasn't able to practice as much. And then now I would say like there's a mix between yoga, like the physical practice, the asana practice, as well as like Pilates and other types of movement practices that I like. I would say Pilates is probably one of my favorites right now. And it's because it's moving my mind in a different way, right? Like, which I appreciate. I like
I haven't
having,
done Pilates yet, but yeah, I should for my back injury.
yes. Now I would say though, like, choose a good teacher, choose a class where it's not like, a lot of weight bearing on your back, and to do it like really mindfully with, because again, you can go to class, the music is loud, the moves are really fast, and you can get injured. So there's that aspect too. But I would say those are my practices right now. I mean,
So
not to,
yoga, Pilates
yoga and Pilates, and yeah,
on a
that's it.
daily basis, every day,
I would
both of them,
say right now I'm at 3, 4 times a week.
3, 4 times a week. This is
Times
where
a
you have your own, let's call it physical health timing or sports or
Yes.
something.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Dubai that I've been finding a bit of a challenge is walking. And in London I
A
used to
huge
walk.
challenge.
Huge challenge for me to walk in Dubai. So that's one of the things that I would like to add more of, because for me, I can work out as much as I want, but if I'm not walking, like, it's just not beneficial. So
Yeah, I know. I know. It's a bit challenging in here. So,
yeah.
talking a bit about moving on to the business aspect. So,
Mhm.
transitioning from a hedge fund to running your own spiritual coaching practice must have involved some strategic shifts. Although I know we spoke about intuition and going with the flow, but how did you
Yeah.
really approach building your brand and business in such a different field? So you moved on to something completely different from what you studied, what you worked in, and what you
Mhm.
at some point thought that this was really your path.
So I will say that I definitely went through a lot of trial and error, for sure. There was a lot of trial and error in order for me to build and create my business today. It wasn't a straightforward and linear journey. Like I mentioned, there was a year where I was completely burned out in between moving from the corporate into my current path and current business. And during that year, there was a lot more introspection for sure. I finally had the space to really feel into what it is that I wanted to create. And there was a lot of doubt I had to overcome in terms of my capacity to teach and guide and lead, because, again, it wasn't something that I believed I could do. So that was a journey as well. I would say that nothing that you do in your life doesn't serve you. So I worked in a hedge fund, yes, but I was in business development. I was working in marketing. I did a lot of like client facing and networking and dealing with clients, emailing clients, doing the events and things like that. So when I did leave, I had that as a base, which I'm so grateful for, because I do feel like I have a sense that people that didn't have that experience are finding it a bit more challenging to build their businesses, because it's not something that comes as naturally. I would say for me as well, like, it's interesting because I'm someone that is very, very logical, as well as like very intuitive. So I was very logical for a very long time. And then, yes, when I quit and I was burned out, I got kind of like turned off by everything that the corporate world taught me. I was like, I wanted to like throw everything out. You know the saying, like I threw the baby and the bathwater out together. It's like,
Yeah.
done. Don't want to explore this anymore. I'm going to figure it out my way. And talking a bit about like masculine, feminine energies without getting too much into it, I was so in my masculine, burned out. And then I went so into my feminine and nothing was happening either. So it was like I went from one polarity to the other, obviously for good reasons, because then I was able to come back to the center and like really bring those two elements together, like the logic and the intuition, the feminine and the masculine. And that's where really I started to see a shift in my career and my business, when I was able to do the two together
And
and
you
not
also
to
remembered
disregard
what you learned back in the corporate days and
all.
how strategies and brands are built and how to develop the business and how to sell. And I believe that combining business development and the corporate world with spirituality and new type of businesses and brands which are purely holistic and spiritual will lead to a successful holistic brand at the end of the day. Because what we're seeing nowadays, what I'm seeing personally, that's my personal opinion, is that all the spiritual leaders, coaches, healers, yogis, whatever, that are too in touch with their spiritual aspects are just being carried away because it's from their heart and they're driven by this and it's their mission. But they're purely neglecting all the other aspects of the business, which are fundamental components in order for them to have a successful business at the end of the day. And this is why they will reach a certain point where it's like, it's not working for me. I don't know, what should I do? And then they go back to square zero.
I would say, by the way, that everyone has their own definition of success, right? Has their own vision of what success is. And depending on that, that will then basically, so what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, the yogi that is super devoted to their yogic path and are very devoted to it, and that's their journey. For them, their view of success isn't necessarily 7 digits a year and
Of
employees
course.
and this and that and this and that, right? Like for them, it's really about, let's say, clearing their karma, being in touch with God. And I would say, though, by the way, that when you have that strong connection to the divine, you are always provided for. And it's true as well that we live in a world where we don't have our own definition of success, right?
What is
Like,
your
what is,
definition of
yeah,
success,
like, what is
Maria?
success, right? Like, what
Tell
is
me
success
about
to you?
it.
Tell me, what's your definition of success? Because my definition of success is feeling very much at peace within myself, and at the same time trusting and believing that I will be provided for and that I'm being of service to people. That's like, for me, like one of my biggest things. It's like, I just, like, how can I serve? It's all about service. If my service then leads to a successful business in the sense of monetary success, then that's just like the cherry on top of everything else, because we all know that, like, what, like, money comes and goes, these things all come and go, right? If my peace is dependent on all of these external things, I'm never really going to fully experience peace. I'm always
Mhm.
going, my peace is always going to be dependent on something external. So you did ask me at one point about like my routine and what do I do. Like every day is a little bit different, but there are certain practices that I never miss anymore, like non-negotiable. That's meditation every single day. If there's one thing that I will not negotiate, it's like I'm very rigid and I won't move and budge on like my meditation practice. And that's because that opens up the channels that are needed in order for me to be of service on a day-to-day basis. And whether that service means out of service, like it's time for me to like shut down and be in my space, or whether it means like forward facing, being out in the world, sharing it with others, right? So I would say, like, for me, success is being in the flow of life and being connected to the self. And from there, everything else happens versus like trying to gain stuff from the outside. That's my definition. It's going to be different for people, right? Because again, everybody has their own experience of life too, right? Like my experience of life is very different. How I feel supported financially, how I feel loved unconditionally, like all of those things are going to be different from person
Of
to
course,
person.
of course. And everyone has their own journey, and every single person has its own unique talents and aspirations and vocation.
Exactly.
So yeah, I 100% resonate with everything that you said. But I'm gonna go back to the business strategies, and you
Yes.
were mentioning
Yes.
how you built the fundamentals of your business back in the days, and you combined all these elements together. So, what did you find really, or what marketing strategies have you found effective in reaching people who are ready to embark on their own spiritual journeys?
I love that question, by the way, so much, because you mentioned something as well when you asked, when you were talking about this already, and you said like selling, right? You mentioned like selling your courses, selling these things. For me, by the way, that's probably one of the things why business development was not for me, especially in the hedge fund setting, is because I don't sell something, right? In that sense, like for me, it really comes from storytelling. I storytell, I share my story, I share my journey, I share my experiences, the highs, the lows, the trials, the errors, the lessons from it, the wisdom I gained from it. The story for me is where I believe people can then see me as well as a being, because selling is also like a very, let's put it like as a masculine energetic thing, right? Versus like storytelling for me feels like a lot more in my feminine. I'm sharing, and from that place, I magnetize the right experiences, the right opportunities, the right clients, because there's a resonance in the story. There's a frequency to the story that is calling forth those people into my life. And that for me, and then that's the thing, like then when I start working with people and the clients that come in, like I I feel them so much, because it's like, okay, like the story is what drew you to me, right? Like the story is what drew each other. Like it's a mutual thing, right? There's a client, or there's a person, there's a being out there that put out an intention for themselves, and I put out the intention, and then those intentions meet and connect through the story, through the energetics of the story.
It's all about storytelling at the end of the day. But yeah, we should not, I believe that storytelling is something that every single business, entrepreneur, and brand should focus on, because storytelling is what really resonates on a human level, because it's not only about giving you the best ad or showing you the best offer. It's not about that. It's about you're buying in the essence of this brand, the essence of this service, and what comes behind it. And I know on a personal level, Maria, you worked a lot on being true to yourself and to your audience, and showcasing every step and documenting your life. And it really resonated with me, and this is how we connected together back in the days. So I believe that you've done a really great job in doing that.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
just
Yes.
wanted to I just wanted
Yeah,
to
I mean, I'm
acknowledge
sure it
that
was the
point.
story that connected us, right? There was something that we shared in common, and that's the thing, right? It's that all of us, yes, we're all very different in so many ways, but there's common threads that connect us. And if I can share a part of that with someone, and that's what draws them in closer towards the work that I am called to share, then that's a beautiful
Yeah,
relationship that forms and that blooms. And it doesn't just feel like this is a client and there's like this hierarchy and all of that. It really feels like there's a deeper connection that's been formed. And I feel like that's what's really important, right? It's community building, it's creating these spaces for people to feel like they're a part of something and not doing everything alone, especially in the world that we live in today that can sometimes feel very isolating and feel alone. So a lot of the people that I work with, like, there are definitely people that I consider friends and people that I like really like, I put in my prayers for them a lot of times. Like, there are people that I deeply, deeply love and appreciate. So
amazing. As we wrap up, what is
mhm.
one piece of advice or insight you'd like to leave to our listeners who are basically solopreneurs or employees who are stuck in their corporate world and would like to transition, or beginners in their entrepreneurial journey? What type of
Yeah,
advice can you give them?
oof. If I have to just give one advice on this,
Insights,
I
advices, watch outs,
it's
whatever you want.
so the first thing that came to my mind is really be curious about the possibility of taking that step if you're not there yet. If you're like still thinking about it, you're still hesitant about it, I would say, like, even in your own mind, allow yourself to be curious, be imaginative of what that life could really look like and how it can take shape and all of that, because I feel like curiosity is such a beautiful underestimated trait
Yeah.
and characteristic.
Allow
Like,
yourself
allow yourself to dream it a bit in your mind at least, and then to take the action. I would say that yes, there will be moments where you're wondering what you're doing, and there might be moments where you're like, I want to burn everything to the ground and like start all over again, and like, what is this, and this sucks, and what am I even thinking? There will be moments like that.
And there
And I
will
would
be
say,
moments where you will go and search for jobs again. Like, yeah, I'm
yeah,
gonna
I
go
didn't do
back.
that. I didn't
I
do
I
that.
I did that like 3 years ago.
Do that. Yeah, I know some people do that. I definitely didn't do that. But I mean, you know what? At least you know that even if you do leave the workforce to start your own thing, like at this point, hopefully you have also enough experience under your belt that if you were to go try out to work in the corporate world again, it's not like a complete no. Like, you would be able to find something if that's, worst case. But yes, as you're sitting through that discomfort of what am I doing? I don't know what's happening. Try to find practices in your life that still the mind, really still the mind, that allows you to connect to your own inner world and to trust that even though the answers are not coming right away, they will come in time. None of us get the full picture at the beginning of our life, like boom, bam, like this is it, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is your whole journey. I mean, if it did, I feel like that's such a spoiler. And yes, when I was younger, I used to read the end of the book before reading the beginning of a book because I was that person that needed to know the end before
We
I
all
could
did
start.
that.
Now I will say, like, savor every single chapter that you're on, every single page that you're on. There are lessons in everything, everywhere, if you listen. So listen. I would say that's another advice for you. Like, just truly, truly listen to you, to yourself, more than the voices of others. And that will always, always guide you back to where you're supposed to go and who you're supposed to be.
Wow, lovely message. And thank you
Oh,
for the advice. I really appreciate it. Finally, Maria, where can people be in touch with you or connect with you? What are you currently offering?
yes. So currently, the two offerings I have are my spiritual coaching and human design readings. There's also actually Reiki. So there's three main offerings. And you can find me on Instagram and my website that is currently under construction but should be done soon. So,
We're
yes,
gonna put
those
the
are,
links in the
yeah,
bio, in
exactly.
the description of the episode. Thanks a lot, Maria,
Okay.
for being here. It was really a great episode. I really appreciate you and all of the things that you're doing. You're an amazing human being
You.
and a friend. Hopefully, we'll see you soon. And thanks a lot again.
Thank you so much for having me on, and best of luck on this exciting chapter of your life. And yes, I'm excited to hear also the other episodes that you have in store for us.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.